I got a letter from Brent Spiner, and I feel I need to read this. If you live in California, you need to listen to this video. Dearest Gail, things certainly got interesting since I last had the opportunity to write you. I wish I could say that I've seen it all when it comes to Jesuits, but that day has yet to come. With a little elbow grease, we managed to recapture Sara Avery and return her safely to quarantine in San Francisco. The plan to reverse her obstructing obesity continued as scheduled. For the sake of mankind, we immediately placed her on a strict diet and exercise regimen, much of which was largely based on the fitness and nutritional advice offered in your own YouTube videos. The method was cast iron in its flawlessness. They have a saying in show business, never work with children or animals. And according to our top scientists, any woman over 250 pounds is considered an animal. The reasoning is that they are unpredictable and you never know what may happen when you attempt to alter their natural behaviors. Our team soon got a lesson in exactly what those unpredictable consequences can be. It was time for Sara's routine afternoon walk when the incident occurred. As with most fat women, Sara adamantly refuses to walk anywhere. Our system involved having a quarantine worker drive an Oscar Mayer weenie mobile in circles around the compound, coaxing a very hungry Sara to chase it until she burned off a satisfactory number of calories for the day. The area was outdoors, but surrounded by tall cement walls with electric fencing and barbed wire over the top. Sara's behavior has grown increasingly aggressive due to the hunger and food cravings caused by the new diet and exercise. Apparently, she was moving faster than usual that day and caught up to and nearly grabbed the weenie mobile. The driver panicked and swerved off course toward the perimeter walls, and when Sara stampeded after the vehicle, she collided with the wall and burst clean through. In a whirlwind of white-knuckle terror, the weenie mobile driver continued his escape from Sara Avery with the gelatinous BEHEMOTH stomping after him far beyond the quarantine area. It wasn't long before the compound was on red alert, and the men and I were called to help track down and demobilize Sara for yet another return to quarantine. In one of the armored trucks borrowed from the compound, we followed the wake of dust that haunted behind the speeding weenie mobile, dodging Sara's massive footprints that threatened to swallow any vehicle that didn't remain on high alert. We quickly realized the trail was leading straight into the heart of downtown San Francisco and braced ourselves for impending disaster. I recall the sight of the unsuspecting rainbow flag rolling in the wind to greet our passage as we finally came upon Sara and the doomed weenie mobile. There were civilians here, other vehicles on the road, and it wasn't long before innocence collided with unbridled obesity. I saw Hugh Jackman cringe out of a side window before pulling himself away, muttering quietly. I followed his attention to see Bubba the Black Jesuit and his youthful ginger boyfriend holding hands as they strolled down the sidewalk ahead. I was about to reassure Hugh when the couple stopped. I saw the startled look on Bubba's face as he caught sight of his former co-worker, I believe that's Sara Avery, in hot pursuit of the weenie mobile, its driver's face locked in a full-mouthed, endless scream. The ginger boy's eyes widened, and when his face sparkled into a childlike smile, I realized his own attention was transfixed solely on the weenie mobile. He was so entranced, his hand let go of Bubba's, and he slowly began wading out into the middle of the street. The driver of the weenie mobile slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting the gay ginger, and as soon as the vehicle slowed, Sara's thick, sweaty palm came crashing down to snatch it up and deliver it to her fat, cushiony maw, that's her mouth. No, the ginger boy yelled, horrified as Sarah's mouth crushed and then swallowed the car. That's not what you do with it. He was throwing his arms in the air and making such a fuss. Sarah took notice and turned her attention on him. Gingerbread? Sarah smiled slowly, her stomach growling. Gingerbread. Sarah's hand flapped down and grabbed for the ginger. Bubba, watching the scene with alarm, made a fast dive for his boyfriend, attempting to push him out of the way of Sarah's attack. He was too late. Sarah's hand wrapped around the boy, and all Bubba could do was latch his own hand onto his lover's arm, pulling and struggling with all of his strength to free him. The next few moments seemed to happen in slow motion. We watched as Bubba's hand slid helplessly down his boyfriend's arm and clasped onto his hand as Sarah began dragging him away. Bubba's eyes welled up with tears, and he tenderly squeezed his lover's hand. Their final exchange I will never forget. Lick, lick my butthole, Bubba whimpered, love and grief quivering through his deep, bassy voice. I will, the ginger boy replied softly, his knowing eyes receptive to his fate as he attempted to soothe his lover with hope. Their hands retchingly parted, their fingers clutching desperately down to the last snuggle. For every last second they could remain together before the gay ginger was torn away, their dreams ending down Sara Avery's fat gullet. Bubba sank to his knees and roared with grief, hot tears streaming down his chubby, black-stubbled cheeks. Sara Avery licked her lips before smiling wide and stomping deeper into the city, following the billboards for directions to the city's restaurants. The men and I were so overcome by what we had just witnessed that several of us got out of the vehicle to intervene. We didn't know what to do. All we knew is that we saw suffering, and it was in our hearts to reach out to this poor man who had just lost his mate. My men are awesome. We're willing to forgive Jesuits if they will get right. The only reason we have to execute them is because they won't get right. But if they're willing to get right, we could forgive them so easily. We want to get along and love everybody. We don't like. Anyways, let me continue reading. Gerard approached Bubba, placing his hand on the Jesuit's fat black shoulder. Bubba was somber, as if in a deep trance, unable to be roused. Men, Gerard spoke, if we don't capture Sara Avery and get that lass's pasty bovine arse on a frickin' diet, this is going to happen to many more people. We all nodded solemnly. There was nothing any of us could do for the heart-shattered Bubba, who refused to move or even make a sound, only crying softly through a 1,000-yard stare. We had lives to save, and with heavy hearts, we loaded back up into the vehicle and in silence followed after Sara Avery. I'm afraid we are in a state of national emergency until Sara is recontained. It's important that anyone in North or Central California remain on high alert and stay indoors, and to avoid restaurants at all costs. Avoid restaurants at all costs if you live in North or Central California. I am so glad that my own lover is safe. He's referring to me. Your husband, Brent Spiner. I didn't have time to be really, to get really dressed up for this. I just came out of the shower and I noticed I got an email from Brent. But I consider this like a semi-emergency. I have friends in California, and I don't want them to get eaten by this monster. She's an obese monster. So follow Brent's advice. Stay indoors if you live in Central or Northern California. Okay? If you see Sara Avery and you want to let my men know, though I think they know where she is, but my men's email is gailsmen, GAILSMEN @yahoo.com. I know this sounds hard to believe, But Jesuits have got some pretty frickin' wild technology. And Sara Avery is a product of a Jesuit cloning lab. And I know it must break Jesus' heart, the stuff that come out of these Jesuit cloning labs. What Satan and the Jesuits create in these cloning labs is a real tragedy, as you can see.